Such a hot topic out there today. We get it from all ends of managers that are really reevaluating their careers, as we know a lot are having some pivots out there today. But then we see the other side of it, of all the folks that are fed up with the impacts of what managers are doing. And so today's segment is all about that subject of middle management and what that really is. And where's the love for you on how to solve this big puzzle mystery that's happening out there today? So come join us on the Game Changing Work Show today with Roxana and myself, Veronica.
This is such a lovely song for this topic.
I know. It's funny is what made us decide to do this topic. It's almost like we experience it in different levels. Either we're observing it firsthand happening to you, or you're coaching, you're working with. And I love this topic because we're taking it from a different perspective and flipping it to where trying to have empathy, right? We all talk about empathy. I can't even talk today. Out there in the world. And so I wanted to take that perspective of having empathy for middle management. Now, let's define what middle management actually means, because I think this can be a little bit nebulous, right? So what's middle management?
Well, these are, I loved what you called that frozen middle. And I think this is what we see right now. So these are people who are managing a team in an organization, but they also report to other people who are higher up in the hierarchy of the organization. And they can be, and typically what I see as a range is mid to senior managers, but they are all in the middle, right? So they have the team on the one side and then the executive team that they report to on the other side. And they're just there in the middle and trying to find a way to keep everybody happy while they also need to take care of themselves.
So the larger your organization is, the wider the span of what we would define as middle management, right? Because if in a large organization, that can be VP levels all the way down to a team leader, for example. So we're really covering all of these breadths to where, because we find it, we're going to use a couple of statistics, some reports. There was a Matthew Lay, thank you for this because you posted it on LinkedIn. Wanted to give you a shout out and credit for that, of Humu's State of the Manager Report of 2022. So I'm gonna pull some of that. You were looking into also some other statistics and also some personal conversations when it comes to some of these leaders that you coach, Roxana. And then I can give a perspective of what's been happening, like in agile transformations, as we've always been talking about this frozen middle.
Yeah.
And this is so important today because of the hypersensitivity and eyes on it from the pandemic now. We have the great resignation that's happened. We have a huge surge in talent tech, a demand. And so there's a lot of pressure coming down in the middle management layer because there's that saying, you don't leave an organization, you leave a boss.
Yeah. I kind of saw things happening differently, especially in the past 2 years, because what I've seen is people leaving an organization in spite of having a great direct boss or direct manager, but leaving because the culture of the organization wasn't what they needed to have. Because there's only, and that's the struggle that great middle managers have, where they want to be great leaders. They want to do things for the team and they want to help their team members thrive. they want to have those great results, but they don't have the framework to allow them to do that properly, because at the higher level of the organization, that's not a priority. And where they clash, that's what comes with people wanting to leave the team, although they have a great relationship with the manager, or they have a great relationship with the team members, but they don't see what else is possible for them in the organization. And they don't like maybe the direction where the organization is going. And that's a struggle. That's a real struggle for those mid managers who want to do things right. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them that are so self-aware and wanting to learn and work with their people, and they are out of solutions.
Yeah, there's coming from working a lot with agile transformation, there's a lot of changes that usually happen that comes with it. You'll get reorgs, you'll get all these different reshuffling, and or there's these roles that come about that might be new. Right, wrong, or indifferent about it is there's always this struggle of, okay, your role is actually changing now. So your job function is changing. And I always have these conversations with them throughout the years is, does this individual have a get out of jail free card? Because how if they're not going to love these new tasks they have to do? So all of you know that when I share on LinkedIn that I'm channeling a lot of Marcus Buckingham's. Ever since I read his book, The 9 Lives about work, I highly recommend all of you to read that. And then his new one, Love Plus Work, where he talks about that 20% of all your tasks that you do in your job, you just need to love those. And that's going to allow you to have a career that you're fulfilled. So getting back to the subject of the manager, how about if they are trying to find that 20% and they are running out of all those solutions, to your point, Roxana. And so they lose really, top talent because they don't have any other options. And the support that they're trying to get is like, how do I maybe get someone to go to another department that's not in my department? Is that an opportunity for me to collaborate with other leaders to try to move them over? Mm-hmm. So, you typically in organizations, if somebody wants to move to another position, not all of them will tell their boss about that. They'll go apply for that job, go talk to them, and then they talk to kind of afterwards, or they give them a heads up because they're going to find out anyways, right? But there isn't this, well, how can I help you get that job? Mm-hmm. It's always that weird conversation sometimes, or not. I've seen some pretty positive, but at the end of the day, it's always about helping them find their love plus work equation, because then we know we're always going to get the best out of them. And we know, you and I, because we measure momentum energy in individuals and teams, that's where we're going to get true momentum. And the energy out of an individual is to find that 20% what they love and where they actually want to contribute and make an impact.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to have some fun with some of these statistics? Oh, and by the way, as we dive into that, those of you that are watching us right now, share your thoughts about this subject. And again, we're trying to take it from a, empathy of the middle management, what you see some of the struggles out there. Maybe it's outside looking in, or you are one. Please share, some of your thoughts as we talk about this subject today. We definitely want to hear from you.
And I would want to hear more from managers rather than, it's good if you, because we all work in teams, right? So chances are you're going to have a manager and some struggles that you find in your team. But I would be very, very curious to hear more from managers and share some of your challenges or maybe some of your successes of what you're doing that works well for you right now.
Yeah, definitely. Now, in this article, one of the I should say it's the HUMU 22 management report. They are definitely talking about management because they actually have a reference between leader and manager. So they are differentiating between the two, like you described, Roxana. And the highlight of this is that managers are more important and more burned out than ever. Yep. Takeaway, key, hands down. And so here is really that key. And here's some top trends modern managers are facing. And so maybe we might dive into some of these. Is managers' jobs are 10 times harder. Managers say retention, hiring, and team performance are their top challenges. If that's you, give us a hey, if you agree with that statement. Now, I have about 4 of them that I'm going to share. So the second one is that leader and manager priorities don't match. Now, I work with this a lot when we look at, product and scaling products and OKRs, when we're trying to actually have strategic focus, we're aligning to the business priorities, product priorities. And by the time you get all the way down into the team and you got this middle management, not everyone's clear what the strategy is. Not everyone's clear on the outcomes that we're trying to do as a business or for our customers. It gets all muddled and messy in that layer. So I can completely see this in organizations a lot today. Managers are ready to quit. They talk about managers are 2 times more likely than individual contributors to be looking for new jobs. Now, we talk about what I'm really interested in, and if any of you have the statistics out there, share it with us, is that when we talk about the great resignation in talent, I don't hear a lot of reference about that statement as much.
No, because you hear the reference to people leave their manager, but the truth is the mid managers also have a manager. So where the leader manager don't align in strategy and purpose and values, definitely you're going to see a breakup right there. What also tends to happen is what I see with some of the managers that I work with. You have your team on the one side, and you're that manager who has a lot of empathy, and the team is open to you and they communicate effectively and they give you feedback and you talk to them and you have a certain kind of purpose and goal that you align on with your team. And then there's nothing that you can do with that because there is no structure there is no room in your organization for that, because you have a parallel goal or you have parallel purposes, one with your team, one from the top down, and you kind of have to reconcile them. And that's a struggle. And when you can't, and guess what? And you're not getting any support. What I see managers, and this is why they're so burnt out, because they need to do their technical job. They still have to do it. And most of the times, this is why they were promoted in a management role, for the technical skills, not necessarily for the people management, people leadership skills. And they very rarely get training for that. And they need to manage the team. They need to know how to motivate and engage their team. They need to know how to keep themselves motivated and engaged. And they need to manage up when it comes to managing their own leader. So
here's what
there's
Luminita
a lot
says.
to unpack. Yeah, I love that.
Recently find hard to keep up with the turnover and keep the upper management happy, meaning we can't change the hiring and retaining talent process, but we expect people to stay and hire. Because most of the time when it comes to hiring and turnover, and a lot of these retention policies are coming out of HR.
Yeah.
And you're bound to some of those constraints. You might get creative. I love working in the gray, but there's only so much coloring you can do in that space.
Yeah. And I have such a big issue sometimes with HR in these cases, because, and talking about empathy, when it comes to HR in organizations, I think this is a crucial department to have, especially right now, because that's a department that can look at what are the policies and procedures that we have, which ones are still serving us and which ones aren't. And you need to listen to when you listen to your mid managers, because they are, boots on the ground. They're very hands-on. They come to you with information of, here's what happens to me in real life. Don't quote me from the book, because I'm wondering if we still keep these processes in place, how many people are going to leave? Are these processes still helping us or not? And I've seen this a lot, where mid managers really have extremely long conversations with HR to try to help them understand, look, this is what's happening in my team. This is what's making my people frustrated. What are some solutions that we can think about to keep them? Because these are people who perform well. And they have the data to support that kind of statement. And then HR comes in and says, we have no room for that.
Yeah, and
they
that's why
said something before.
that's why there is an increase in HR agility today. And it's a combination of being able to be adaptive in their and how they react to what they learn. And adaptive leadership is something that actually is being taught within HR along with their processes, right? That's where the agile kind of comes in. And also one that I love, even product practices. So you'll hear things like design thinking, you'll hear things from discovery, you'll hypothesis driven development, all of these types of techniques that you learn in product and agile and what might have you, because what you think may be, there's so much changing out there today when it comes to the workplace and environment. We're dealing with a lot of uncertainty right now. We don't know if hybrid's going to work, right? The 3 days in, 3 days off. You have, some companies are exploring the 4-day work week. We had a guest on, the last time. There's all these different shifts, or we're actually trying to change our culture where we're trying to be more innovative, and we have a lot of baggage that we have to change internally. Well, we have a lot of legacy leadership that may or may not be on board with that, right? Hey, Mitch, how you doing? And there's so many, or financials, right? We have a board that we have to answer to. There's so many dynamics that there's a lot of uncertainty to, it's almost like they need a test to see what's actually going to work, but then I'll serve all of these stakeholders, and I call serve all the masters, right? And that's where product, it could be very helpful, because what do they do all the time? They're always working with stakeholders and serving masters, looking internally and externally, right?
Yeah.
You look externally, as in your customer, and internally within the people. And so it's a very interesting dynamic what's happening, in the HR space. But let me share the fourth one, folks. Now this is where everyone gets probably excited, because this is the favorite one.
Question. Okay.
Yeah. So bad managers are getting worse. That was the fourth one. I told you there were 4.
Yeah.
And it says managers with low effectiveness ratings became significantly worse in 3 specific areas. And I'll cover that in a little bit. But Luminita, you had a question, which was, how often do you think the HR should reevaluate company policies? Good question, right?
Yeah, very good question. And I think, especially in this world, how often you need to do it, like it's not a specific pace. And I think this is where, when we talk about flexibility, this is what we need to talk about in the first place. How flexible are you to even think about what policies serve you or don't serve you anymore? And when we talk, because here's the thing, when we talk about hybrid, we talk about virtual, we talk about the 4-week work week, 4-day work week. All of this requires flexibility. And flexibility doesn't mean that I'm going to bend with the wind each time the wind blows. Flexibility means I know who I need to listen to and where I need to get my data from so that I make well-informed decisions. When it comes to HR blocking all of the information that comes from mid-managers or from the bottom up, because it's not too important, or it's not a priority, or it's not coming from the top down, that's when you have a problem. And then even not considering the critical mass of information and data that comes towards you, so that you as HR actually have a business case, so you suggest some solutions to the executive level. It's not waiting for somebody from the top of the organization to come to you and ask for something. The truth is, if we just know to listen and get that information And what we had with Brian when we talked about the 4-day work week, when he was our guest on the show, it's exactly that. They listened to what worked for their people. And Brian is a perfect example of a mid-manager, mid to senior manager, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
To answer your, Luminita, to answer your question directly, this is where, how should HR reevaluate company policies? There really isn't a direct answer to it. If we think about HR as a product and services, and if I was to answer it more in a product thinking mindset, there's a difference between startup companies or a new product versus a well-established product. And what we would always talk about is, how often do you think changes are going to happen? How uncertain are you about your product and service? So the best way to answer you is, if there are a lot of things that are changing within the company, which most likely I'm going to say, yeah, we might want to take more of a startup mentality, because we're still learning and adapting to a lot of unknowns. That's the best way for me to answer you. And this is why I say HR could take in account a lot of these product and agile practices, that thinking and acting in their world. And so that's why HR agility is becoming hugely, that's even a word, popular. Now, Mitch, I know there's some love here. So I want to make sure that we put what you said here about your personal favor of the agile work week, where you commit to completing weekly goals or bi-weekly goals.
I like
right.
that.
And then, of course, Eddie, the rest of the day is on your own.
Yeah.
Now, love that.
That means a very high level of trust that people are actually going to do the job. And this is another thing that we don't see in a lot of organizations, where we need to bring people back in the office and we need them to come in like 4 days a week.
But that's not going to solve the problem if fundamentally there's a lack of really understanding what their vision. This is why I talk about scaling products versus scaling agile. And when you're vision led in product management, that kind of thinking is what your vision is. Once you have clarity on your vision, now there's different levels, and then you start to think about your strategies, right? You have your business strategies, product strategies, and then it starts to trickle down to the groups and areas that you work in. All of this has a direct correlation to priority, alignment, and focus.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that you're doing every day, to Mitch's point, if we are crystal clear about what those are, and we know what the outcomes that we're actually trying to achieve, this is why I'm a big fan of that. But I'm also a big fan of strategic orientation and vision led as well, right? The cart before the horse, before you get to that will change the dynamic of the things that you do every day, right? And until you fundamentally can solve some of those puzzles, as I call it, it's going to be really hard to give that luxury of trust that you're talking about, Roxana, if the organization hasn't necessarily, as I say, get the house in order to even allow that ability. Because otherwise it starts to become Lord of the Flies. And you can't blame them for not trusting, because fundamentally they haven't set the structure up in place to even allow that, because they're running on traditional ways of thinking and acting.
Well, and that's the thing. And what we've seen with the pandemic and the way that everybody needed to operate differently almost overnight, and we've seen a lot of the teams and managers all hands on deck. They were there and they did the job, and they did more than it was required from them, because guess what? We were going through a crisis and everybody wanted to help as much as they could, and they did as much as they could do. And we've seen extremely high levels of creativity and innovation when it comes to the middle management and to their teams coming up with solutions to still be able to serve their clients and do the job and get those results. And then when after that, you're bringing me back and telling me, I don't trust you to do the work from home. I need to see you in the office so that I can see you at work. When I put, and that's a frustration that I'm hearing, I'm putting my heart and soul into it. and I don't feel valued for it.
And you're not listening to me, right? Because
you're not.
It varies. This whole conversation about office not, at the end of the day, it's really about flexibility and choice.
Yeah.
And what that starts to look like varies based on the individual. That's like a whole conversation on its own around that topic. But ultimately, when it comes to middle management, which is our focus of today, and I can't believe it's already 12:41 where we're starting to wrap things up. Goodness gracious.
Always like that. Come on.
I know. But this report, it really talks about top trending, manager nudges. It goes into a lot of different things, and we'll share the link on this. But ultimately, these are things that most of us already knew. We talk about it or whatever, but I think now it's surfing to a point where we're being forced to address it. And it's happening sooner than later in certain organizations. And the pressure could be because now there's a financial impact to it, right? If you're not able to, and you have most companies have some kind of tech strategy of some sort. And so we know that with the pandemic, all the tech projects or types of things that they were wanting to do, initiative strategies, however you want to term it, say that was 5 years out, the pandemic basically shortened that runway and things are now happening within the 2 years because they were forced to do it. I mean, look at Mitch, if you're still there, your company Box, right, became probably, had a lot of growth because of that, right? Because of all the digital tool sets and the digital needs. So there's a lot of huge, even if it's an internal need or it's a consumer facing type of initiative in your company. And so with that said, they need a lot of tech talent in order to make this happen, or they're going to have to figure out how to work smarter, have more strategic focus, have more alignment because they are limited with the number of people. So it's forcing a lot of changes that are happening there today. Now, some companies are getting smarter going, well, there's something about this leadership thing that we need to do as well and trying to figure that out. Because they're seeing the dots are connecting, right? It's like a spider web. And because there's a people element to this as well.
Exactly. So that's what I wanted to share. So here's what London Business School has to say about that. First of all, one of the things that I liked best in their report about management is 90%, 90, not 19, 90% of great ideas in an organization don't come from the executive suite. That's one. So here's why we need to listen to all of these networks. Even if you have a hierarchical organization, you need to listen to the people because they give you the data. You make decisions based on data, and then you don't waste time and money and energy. And another thing that's super important right now, and some of the companies that are thriving have been doing this for a while, is they realize that they need to move from human capital, so just hiring people based on knowledge and expertise and just valuing that, towards social capital, which means how are we able to get things done through other people? And I think when it comes to that's crucial.
That's the power of teaming, right? Mitch, you're probably going to love that.
That's the power of, understanding how you can lead people, how hiring the best people in your organization is going to translate into how much money you make, how much money you save, how much money you might lose.
And it's all important to have all those conversations of how they connect with each other. Yeah. Now, as we're closing up today's conversation, those of you that may not know and you're just joining us now, we are approaching the end of our live event. But we were talking about middle management and where the love is for you.
I don't think there's much love. I don't know. Let us know what you feel.
We wanted to take it from a different perspective because there's a lot of bashing that's happening out there today. And we have to empathize what some of those challenges that they're going through that they may not be doing the best. They may not, but or say that they might not choose the best approaches, but they're doing the best that they can. Those that are not doing the best they can, what are we still doing to help change that paradigm? We can't ignore it. We can't just let it keep continuing, right? So this is kind of why we wanted to flip the script and go, okay, well, what's going on in there? What's really happening? Because remember, as I'm going to have my closing thought, and then you'll do your closing thought, and then we'll talk about our event. How's that? So my closing thought is what the middle management that we have today, how they got there, is a whole different story to really understand that in general before we actually start to treat the symptoms and the things that are happening. Because if we think about the traditional way that most people have gotten promoted out there in history, it wasn't because, hey, you're great with people, we think you're going to be a great people leader. That's not the case. Let's just be honest, folks. Most people that got in the hierarchy and up there is because they were really good at driving results. They were really good with networking and their personal brand. That's very different than being a people leader. Okay. Just because you're really good at negotiating and doing things with other group doesn't mean you are a good people leader. That's what I've seen out there. And then also getting those results. So you get, that type of folks there, right? You articulate really well and communicate your strategies. Great. You're a leader. So all of those things through the years, people have gone up the chains, right? How good you schmooze, how good results you get, you name it. Mm-hmm. Now we're looking at a different perspective, and now we're judging how well they lead their people. And hey, we're losing all this talent because of you. Or hey, in agile teams, you suck as a leader because you're not supporting them.
Yeah.
But exactly. At the end of the day, most people didn't even realize that's what they needed to do, because the in tradition, to get that job, that wasn't the criteria to get promoted. Yeah, it was the results that you get. It wasn't about the people.
So I love this because it's always been the double standard. And right, I mean, it's the organization that promoted people based on ABC, right? I promoted you to manager based on your technical skills and your results and the money you bring and that. And then I'm going to measure you based on X, Y, and Z, which means I'm going to measure you against how well you hire people on the team, how well you lead them, how well you help them stay motivated and engaged. That's what I'm going to measure you on. As an organization, I've always done that. But now I have different expectations once you're in the role. How's that for a double standard? Why don't we promote or prepare people to be promoted? Okay, I see this person has potential. They're bringing the good results. How good are they with leading people? Where do I see them in 2-5 years? How can I prepare them? Do they even want to be a manager? Because the truth is, a lot of people don't.
Yeah, they just want to be promoted because that's the only way to make more money.
And exactly. Okay, and when I promote them, do I measure them based on how much money they're gonna bring? Or is it possible that I measure them on how many people stay in their team, how effective and how high performing their team is? What's my measure? And how am I communicating that to them? So that's why I have a problem with the saying that people leave managers, because there's a reason why organizations have kept doing the same thing over and over again. Because I promote you, I put you there, and I put everything on you. I put all the pressure on you. And then when I need a scapegoat, I'm going to have you as a scapegoat. And this is what's been happening with middle managers, especially with the ones that had no idea where to start from and that didn't have a support system in their organization. Now, a lot of organizations do a lot of things for their mid managers, but what I'm saying is try to have a clear understanding of what you're measuring them against and communicate that effectively, because at the end of the day, that's going to have a huge impact on the bottom line.
And speaking of impact, we have a monthly meetup that we've expanded. The GCW, those of you that might not be aware, is our new community. You can go to meetup.com and you can Game Changing Work. Imagine that. Quite original name, I know. For short, GCW Meetup. So we are going to have it May 11th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to talk about how to maximize managing teams in the modern workplace. And so we're going to talk about different ways of teaming. And so there might be some like different types of assessments or different kind of things to kind of figure out, well, how do I actually build my team, or if you're actually trying to form a team. So we're going to come at it in different angles. And we're going to use a lot of things that are out there, not just one. And what was the second one, Roxana, that we had that we're going to talk about?
It was, so first of all, some of the things that you can look at and some of the things that you need to be aware of. So assessments, and then management styles, and some solutions, some management solutions for you when it comes to managing the team. Because some of them, I talk to a lot of mid managers, and they're not aware of all of the solutions that they can use in the team and with the team right now. Because again, nobody took the time to take them through that whole process of, here's what you can do and how you can motivate and engage your team. So now, this is what we're going to share with you.
So with that said, you're going to have some tangible takeaways in the meetup. That's the whole purpose. So we're having the lives kind of introduce some topics and have fun. But our meetups are going to be more of the learning and really deep dive. So at least you'll have something to leave with. Yeah. So there's going to be some goodies for this meetup for anyone that's managing teams at what we call for the modern workplace. So here is the community URL. So meetup.com, Game Changing Work Virtual Community. It is a virtual. For anyone can join virtually. And again, it is May 11th. At 6 p.m., how to maximize managing teams in the modern workplace.
Yeah. We're gonna put the link in the comments so that you can click on it and join us.
So it is time to start closing and winding down. Thank you all for joining us on the Game Changing Work Show. Just wanted to let you know, as we stream live on LinkedIn, if you ever want to go back to our library of all our live streaming episodes, we do house them on our Game Changing Work YouTube channel. We are eventually going to clean it up more and organize with our live shows, and then maybe some snippets of what we're actually doing elsewhere. But right now, go there to the Game Changing Work YouTube channel if you want to see. We have probably over a year and a half worth of episodes, if you don't know that or not.
A lot of stuff.
So
thank you, Lavinica, and thank you, Mitch, for being with us today.
Yep. And thank you all for joining today. And we are here always trying to change the game, getting you to rethink, and all those possibilities of lead different, work different,
think different,
and think different. We have no order in the way we do it, but all three matter.
We always shuffle, but hey.
See you, everyone. Enjoy your day.
See you.
Bye.